We can make a slow start. It's 8 o'clock in the morning and it's day 2. So we'll start slowly. So we have a packed agenda today. We have 2 panels. The first panel is about the operator's view on orchestration and automation. And then the end panel is the supplier's view on automation and orchestration. And between these 2, we have 2 presentations. One is a proof of concept, lab testing, and the other is about the standards and the status of automation standards. So if I may start and ask the first panel to join, could I ask Betrez, Roman, Francis, and Mark, please? And we can kick off the first panel.
Kind of change like this? Good morning. Very early start. I'm Francis Haston from Abdel Research. We're a firm focused at the whole area and the opportunity from automation and particularly from the softwarization of networks. Great panel here from the CSPs. We're going to be looking at what I think is actually probably the most important part of Open RAN, which is taking that technology and actually putting it into place and allowing us to manage it, to orchestrate it, most importantly orchestrate it flexibly in a way that is more than just a replica of existing RANs. We've got a lot of questions to get through here, but I'd just like to sort of start with each of the panelists is what does orchestration and automation mean to you and your companies? And just a little brief introduction of yourself with that answer. I'll come to you, Beatriz, first.
Well, I'm Beatriz González. I am from Telefónica, and in Telefónica, during the last years, we are fostering automation across a global program, a company program that we call the Autonomous Network Journey. And it's focused not only in Open RAN or in the RAN domain, but also in all the network domains, the core, the transport, the infrastructure below, the fixed access. So in Telefónica, we have automation, orchestration, autonomy in our core business today, okay? And well, one important thing is that I am from the operations team. I'm not technological one, okay? Just to, because maybe my comments will be more focused on operational point of view than the technological one. But that would be, I would say.
And Mark, if I can come to you next.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, welcome this early morning. Good that you are here. You made it, that's good. Yeah, my name is Mark Fiedler. I'm working within Deutsche Telekom Group Technology. I'm responsible for the development of the SMO platform and network automation platform. And mainly the motivation of Deutsche Telekom is for sure to get more efficiency in the OSS landscape by integrating all those nitty-gritty complexity of the upcoming radio access network technologies, but also in the other domains. So that's mainly.
And Roman, if I can come to you last.
Yeah, thank you. Also welcome to all. For us, for me, in Vodafone, automation, in fact, is a very, very critical area, right, for Open RAN. And it's also a journey. We see it as a journey because it is something that is going to be implemented into the network in a phased process, right? And this phased process, the criteria for each phase is, in fact, is going to be based mainly in operational requirements. That I think is the first thing that have to be looked into when you're trying to include automation or any kind of automation. And secondly, the industry maturity, including both the vendor, you know, so the solution that availability, and also the specifications maturity in our case. And we can summarize, and we summarize these phases in 3 main areas. At the end, it will be as things to evolve, it can change, but we see that the first stages will be all about achieving operational efficiency. It's key to achieve this in order to be able to to provide our operational teams on a tool that will keep at minimum the impact of introducing the Open RAN with all the new technologies, compared to what we do in the traditional RAN right now. The second stage, once they started to grasp all the things about the new technology, the new Open RAN, the automation and everything, will be to start streamlining processes, automated processes, in order to be able to increase a little bit, provide more advanced automation use cases, focus on giving agility and availability to scale to the network and adapt. And finally, for us, is introducing, on top of the intelligence and learning capabilities, that in fact should be introduced phasedly also in the other two, but introduce the once you gain the trust on the automation piece itself, introduce the capability for the network to add itself in a closed loop manner. This is more or less how we see this.
That's great. If we could sort of move on, obviously, in terms of the panel, you've come to this this group through separate routes. If I can start with you, Mark, you've come more from the Open RAN and joining the TIP Roma community. What has been your rationale to join the community, and during your participation, how have you seen what you're doing change?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, mainly it's all about having an aligned view on the requirements and integration efforts. We as Deutsche Telekom are involved in Open RAN and TIP working groups, mainly in working group 6 in ORAN. But I would tackle that a bit from that side, that I'm, as a person, I'm active in the ONAP community, and I think we need to have the split between how to tackle this complexity, how to really get solutions realized and developed, and on the other hand, having the alignment in the SDOs about open interfaces, specification requirements towards that, because it needs to be aligned and need to be integrated afterwards. And the complexity comes when you want to adopt your operational processes and start automate things, and you see that things not working as expected. And that's mainly where we see, and that was one of the motivations where we also had this MOU founded roughly 2 years ago, to having an aligned view on those requirements.
Yeah, and Beatrice, if I come to you, you've started in more from the TIP side of it. How is your rationale for joining, and how have you seen the process change or the focus change through that period?
As you say, I am one of the co-leaders jointly with Roman and Veronica, and also with T-Mobile. He's also one of the technical co-leaders. And at least for me, it has been a great opportunity to really participate. It's true what we have heard yesterday about the ecosystem and all these things we say, but it's true. I mean, we are working in that way. We are sharing our thoughts, our points of view. We are discussing. We are learning from each other. So at the beginning, we start with the use cases, with the requirements. We had feedback from other operators as well, from some vendors. So I think we are really building this ecosystem of innovation, focused now in our case in automation and orchestration. Okay, and then the TIP in general, the TIP Roma was aligned. Also, as Mark has said, with the MOU operators requirement, what was really important, because at the beginning, we were working, we were the same people working in TIP Roma and in the MOU requirements for the SMO part. So finally, we go in the same way. I mean, we have the same requirements, prioritization, we have the same use cases, and now that we are building all the ecosystem with the vendors testing their solutions, I think is going very, very, very well from my perspective.
Roman, if I can come on to the next question, what are you seeing as the key things that automation and orchestration will bring to you and your organization?
Good question. I will try to keep in the same sense that I started the first question, or answered the first question. The key priority that we have identified, in fact, at the early stages with the massive deployment and at scale deployment of Open RAN is to be able to have a deployment, right, automation, and also the automation it will be key for both stages in deployment and also in operations. At the end, due to the increased quantity and complexity of operational activities, right, that is coming inherently with the inclusion of the cloudification that was not before, this is something new. Automation becomes key there to be able to overcome that increase in complexity. This will be the first things, to be able to pave the way, so operational speaking, the Open RAN implementation at this early stage is a success. And later on, then it will, of course, give a lot of others important things. It will, in fact, enable RAN domain to be able to create end-to-end network orchestration and slicing use cases. As well, again, from operational point of view, it will surely improve the service availability and also its performance, considering that it will be require less time to act and to react in some cases to network failures.
And Mark, if I could ask the same question, what in terms of what you're seeing as the benefits it will bring your organization?
I would cover that a bit more from that other angle when it comes to deployment scenario, and so we will have discussion later, I know, but when it comes to this, how to integrate and where the benefits of orchestration and automation at the end, this is that we always have in the industry this kind of view, having the operators are the let's say brownfield, or having a kind of brownfield in their organizations, complex processes, a lot of dependencies, not the right skills, right? That is what industry sees when it comes to how we can adopt ORAN to this industry part. And I think that's one of the challenges we see, that we anyway need to transform the management systems, at least in Deutsche Telekom, to more modern path to be able to tackle the requirements for the future. And orchestration automation provides the capabilities to master the upcoming complexity with these new technologies. We will add more layers to our operational organizations, and that requires a strong automation capabilities, and then also the development of our staff, our peoples to work with this technology.
B, if I come to a slightly different question, there's a lot of talk about what the use cases are. What are you seeing as the key use cases, both generally in the industry for particularly the RAN orchestration and automation, but specifically for your organization as well? What do you see as the key use cases?
Okay. Yes. We were working at the beginning in the TP Roma with Vodafone, and we have a slightly different use cases. Well, deployment scenarios to start. In our case in Telefónica, what we are thinking as the first deployment is to count on the RU and the DU at the cell site, and then the CU will be centralized at the edge or at the regional data center. Okay, that is our first deployment scenario that we are exploring now. And regarding the use cases, well, I think this is nothing new. I mean, we are thinking on commissioning use cases, in automation commissioning, and some simple FCAPS use cases as well. But my feeling is that the use cases are continuously evolving. I mean, we are starting from the very basic, is what Roman has said at the beginning. This is a journey. So we have started from the very simple. As we are also changing the way we are working, we are thinking in an agile way, and we are thinking the minimum viable product. So we are starting with the very simple use cases to grow on them, okay? So as technology maturity is evolving, the use cases in automation, in orchestration, are also evolving too. That's our feeling. We are putting more intelligence. We are thinking also on artificial intelligence and so on. So we are mixing automation and autonomy at the same time.
And Roman, similarly, what are you seeing as, from Vodafone's point of view, the sort of lead use cases, the ones that need to be addressed first?
Yeah, exactly. That's key question. I mean, what you say at the end, the one that have to need addressed first. So being consistent, the first one that have to be addressed. In fact, we started with the deployment use case. In this case, zero touch deployment. There will have to be in place a solution, a completely automated solution to be able to plug-and-play deployments is you go to the site, install the bare metal server. In our case, in Vodafone, the deployment scenario is going to be containerized network functions since the day zero and completely distributed, co-located CUDU at cell site. Right? So the idea is to have a complete solution to make a plug-and-play automated commissioning of the server, going on to the CAS layer, going out to the CNF deployment instantiation, and up to the configuration of the application radio part or layer and cell activation. I mean, all this at the end, at the minimum, you have to be there. Maybe a flavor of it, a piece of it, then the other can be done manual, but it's key at least for the cloud part. You have to be there at least for Vodafone at the first stages. Later on, as assessed very clearly, there will be additional use cases, assurance use cases, including automation and all that. But for the first day, we are focusing right now on ensuring the massive deployments.
Okay, that's slightly different question, really. Opportunities and challenges in orchestration and management. Choose depending on your temperament which one. But what are you seeing as the big opportunities here, but also the challenges you need to overcome?
Yeah, well, it's slightly reflected to the answers before, but the opportunity is mainly to having really having a couple of open interfaces available. I think for us as a telcos, that's one of the key aspects to really have the ability to manage a multi-vendor landscape. Having an open O1, whatever open at the end mean, but that's something we will see. But same to the A1 interface, open front haul, M-plane, and the adoption of all the use cases we have heard, and potentially that's the commonality of the telcos then, where we really want to integrate based on this specifications related to the interfaces. Challenges for sure is basically that all the vendors basically who are interested, so having the incumbent vendors or having the new kids on the block, as we will call them, support all those specification and definitions. And I think that's the critical path to see how when the vendors, and potentially we will hear something a bit later, but when they will adopt based on these specifications. And that's the opportunity and challenge, let's say, combined.
And Beatrice is a similar question, opportunities and challenges here.
Okay. From my point of view, one opportunity that is related somehow to what Mark and Roman has said before is that this complexity that we have to manage gives us the opportunity to work in a different way. So we are exploring new ways of working, and I think it's very, very important that new approach to the situation. That would be one of my main benefits. This new way of working, this automation that we are putting in all our core processes, give us more time to leave the basic tasks to do the basic tasks in an automated way, and to devote that extra time that we have for more beneficial tasks to the company. So we can work in other things that now we are doing manually. So we have to remove these manualities to do more evolution things and more interesting things. That would be the benefit. And the challenges, I mean, yesterday we have heard a lot of challenges, and I'm not going to say no more new challenges, but I think that the challenge is to build a product, but not only thinking on the performance capabilities, because from my point of view, the Open RAN product must be sustainable by design, must be secure by design, must be automated by design. So we need to build all these capabilities together, okay? All of us, the operators, the vendors, and that. So that are the main challenge from my point of view.
And Roman, challenges, opportunities here?
Yeah, I mean, opportunities. First one will be to be able to really take advantage of all the benefits that is coming with Open RAN, programmability, separation of hardware and software, disaggregation, cloudification, and all these new benefits, open interfaces. Be able to really take advantage of that without impacting too much on the current operational model. It will have to change. Is one of the challenge, right? I will title right now. Adapting the current operational model to the cloud-native way to the new way of work is going to be a challenge. It's going to happen somehow, of course in a phased way, but it's going to happen. But we need to, automation will allow us to, in fact, grasp, and take advantage of this new technology that we're coming and the new approach that Open RAN is showing. And the second one that I would say is bringing the programmability to the RAN and be able then to put on top of that programmability the automation capabilities is going to finally enable and realize the full autonomous network from the perspective of slicing, assurance, and everything, but end-to-end before we have some kind of gap there. Because we have the SDN, we have the, for core, it was been, but the RAN part was left a little bit aside. So now we have managed to read now with also this up to the RAN, so end-to-end network capabilities. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would say.
So,
sorry, Francis, I forgot one challenge I would like to highlight also, and I think it's a challenge for all of us as well, that we are brownfield operators, so we cannot forget the traditional RAN in this automation journey. So we have to manage in an automated way both the open RAN and the traditional RAN as well. That's an important challenge, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of in conclusion, we're going to hear from the vendors at the end of this panel, sorry, the session. Do you have any messages or focus you think the vendors should be sort of looking at? What is your message to the vendors in terms of helping in this area? And Mark, I'll come back to you, and you did start on that in the previous question, but maybe develop that a little.
Yeah, mainly we are sorry. Sorry. We are focusing mainly when it comes to when we would have a wish. When we would have a wish, then it's mainly to the, let's say, the...
Sorry, I'll cut it.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Beatrice, if you'd like to.
Okay. What I would encourage all of you here and the ones that you are not here, but you will maybe reading or hearing this, is to join the TIP community and to show what the products, what the services can do regarding automation, orchestration in a multi-vendor environment. That would be my real invitation now, because we are now in that moment of testing the solutions and also revisiting the requirements, and any feedback, any contribution is welcome in the TIP community.
And Roman, similarly, message to the community.
Pretty much aligned with what Bea says. I mean, invite you all, I say, to collaborate with us in the Roma, right? It is key for the collaboration. It has been already emphasized a lot about the need for a collaboration, both in the standardization phase, specification phase, but also here in the definition of the final solution. This is a new for all, and we need from you and you need from us, so let's have to collaborate. And one additional aspect is for the vendors to try to, on top of the baseline, I mean, the requirement that we have managed to unify, on top of that baseline for use cases and basis requirements, try to bring each one of you a kind of differentiation piece, something that differentiates, something that elevates your product on top of the solution. They will not only create for us a very good thing ecosystem, also learning from the experience that you have with these additional things, and help us as well as to the whole community to create a really integral solution. So that could be my recommendation.
And Mark, I guess, you save the last word for you, hopefully.
I lost my voice. All good. Thank you. Thank you. It's no corona, no worries. Automation orchestration, I think we are divided in two areas when it comes to solutions coming from vendors who provide automation and orchestration solutions, but sorry. So we are divided in these two areas, automation and orchestration, and vendors who provide solutions from the radio perspective. So I guess I'm out for today.
Mark, I think.
But my wish would be just that the adoption of these interfaces towards the O-RAN vendors, that's more important than having a new approach of SMO or orchestration and automation solution for us as operators, because the challenge is mainly that we will change our operating model towards getting more stake and responsibility of managing our workloads and new radio networks. And I think that's something where we need to change the perspective a bit towards having always this kind of nitty-gritty specifications for an automation solution where all the vendors provide different solutions to the market, and then we have a divided, let's say, a bunch of flowers and solutions where we as telcos honestly not benefit from it. So, and that is, to summarize it from my end a bit, the importance of having this MOU, having a defined requirement set, and having really a combined view towards the requirements we have to the industry. So I'm really looking forward that the incumbents and new kids on the block provide the right adoption of the open interfaces to us as telcos, so that we can evolve in our journey of adopting O-RAN to our new footprint.
That's great. So I'd just like to thank the panel, Beatrice from Telefónica, Roman from Vodafone, and Mark from Deutsche Telekom.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for a great panel, Frances, and all the panelists. And may I call Gerald and Anton to present the RAN domain orchestration, the proof of concept. Do we help? Yeah.
All right, good morning. Thanks for all of you joining us. Very short introduction. My name is Gerald Huber. I'm working for Telefónica Germany. I'm in the mobile business since 1994, working for Vodafone, for Telecom, for O2 now, also as a consultant in the meantime. So doing a lot of stuff. And recently, I'm taking care about any kind of innovation concerning radio and transport.
Good morning, and my name is Anton Petrov. I'm with Product Management and Solution Engineering in Netcracker. I was a part of the POC. This is what we're going to be talking about today.
All right. So, Open RAN, Telefónica Germany. We are one of the operators which we have a live Open RAN 4G network. So it's located in South Germany, in Landsberg. It's this little red dot here. It's west of Munich. For anyone who knows the area, there are a few sites based on 4G and Open RAN, and we do have a service provider there for building the complete thing, which is NEC. We do have different radio integrators and things like this, and we are not containerized. Just as an info. Out of this whole deal, there came from NEC the offer to do a trial or POC with Netcracker, because they're part of the family from NEC. And so we started to do a trial of the RAN domain orchestrator from Netcracker in our lab. And here we have our lab setup, and Anton will tell a little.
Thanks, Gerald. Yeah, let me guide you through this, what we have built. I guess previous day, more than one speaker definitely mentioned diversity. I guess the urge for open and architectures and open interfaces and openness in general, and disaggregation, it inevitably brings this diversity. And let me show you this. This is a fairly compact RAN segment that we've built in the lab together with NEC and Telefónica. And you see how many players we have here. So we have hardware from Supermicro and Dell, hardware platforms. We had radio heads from Comba. The whole setup was integrated by NEC. Rakuten/Altiostar provided the RAM functions. And finally, the SMO was from Netcracker. And I guess from the deployment perspective, it's even more interesting, because we had more than one option of deployment. We had DUs placed on bare metal, while the control plane was deployed on OpenStack, VNFs, as Gerald mentioned. And finally, the SMO was in the OpenShift cloud. So this is quite a diversity here, and I think it's a great illustration of why interop is extremely important here. So especially from the SMO and orchestration perspective, because we envision that SMO will, whether you like it or not, will inherit some of the OSS functions in a bigger environment as we getting closer to production. Because someone needs to talk, when commissioning sites need to talk to cell-side gateways, cell-side routers, planning systems, and so forth. And while hopefully we're gonna have more open systems in the next phase, and hopefully we'll get all one interface finally and bypass the EMS, and more players sticking to the standards and open and up the interfaces, I guess there should be no fallacy that an open interface means zero cost effort. And of course, there will be systems that are not going to be open for a while. So it means that for one of the findings, and I think maybe early observations, that you have to keep your integration best practices in a good shape, regardless of how open this environment will be. So back to you, Gerald.
Okay. So after we decided that we're going to do this proof of concept, we were looking for use cases. So together with our global colleagues, as you see in the right-hand side, we had some definitions within Telefónica Global, what to do, what kind of tests we can do. We did a matching to the naming of the Netcracker product, because this is number one, learning, names are different from any company, any vendor, and you can put a lot of things inside. I have later a small example for this. So, and as Beatrice just said, those are very basic things. So we did an auto commissioning, and please believe me, we are not living on the backside of the moon. We do have auto commissioning, of course, but not in this level. So we don't have auto commissioning built on our software. We have it for the existing network, but not for the Open RAN network. And this shows a new complexity, especially with the virtualization. So overall, I must really say we at the beginning we tried to make, okay, what is better performing, our solution or is it the solution of Netcracker? And we failed because there's so many use cases which are not in both worlds. So of course you can do auto commissioning, but in this case there's also the commissioning of the servers of the virtualization software, which is not existing in today's network. So it's very, very difficult to compare. We really tried, and because we wanted to be as clear as possible, but in the end we said, okay, this is. You always compare apples with pears. So we run through these tasks, and we had a learning journey together. So this is, for me, also a very important thing. We tried very hard to do this in a modern style of, of working with Scrum. I think we both learned out of this. And one of the big advantages for me was that in each of the cycles, we said, okay, what do I expect? And sometimes it came out, okay, no, sorry, this is, you're wrong, the expectation is wrong, the product is not doing this. So we understood what it's doing, we adapted it, and so we always knew where to go. Yeah. This was very good, and for me this is also a topic, those are not off-the-shelf products. It's not. So you have to go into a deep discussion with your provider and discuss what you need, what is the solution kind, how is it called. Maybe you want to add something?
No, I completely agree. And I guess this Scrum approach gives us a better way to manage the scope, because as Gerald, you mentioned, previous speakers mentioned, we are in the journey. We're getting started. You see, even the setup was actually not 100% Open RAN compliant back then. Still, using this quick iterations and becoming basically forearmed, aware of what will be delivered in the next sprint, I think we were able to manage scope much better.
And maybe to wrap this up, so the use cases are more or less the life cycle of a very simple life cycle of a site. So it's the decommissioning, it's the update, synchronization, aggregated PM, FM, which was also for me, I'm a radio guy. So for me, this was very interesting because it includes not just the radio part, the FM and PM, it's also including the performance of the servers or the server software. So you get a complete picture, because a container will not know on which machine is it running. So you need a system which is understanding, okay, if I have an outage, what is the reason for the outage? Is it the server? Is it the radio? Is it the software? Is it the application layer? Is it this virtualization layer? So the complexity is increasing enormously. So this was the case, which I expected less from the content point of view, but it was much more. Then we have the consequence out of the failure detection, so the reparation or the correction, and software upgrade at the end, the scale out, which is then the end of the life cycle. So a very simple life cycle of a site, but again, as Beatrice said, it's the basic we have to start with. We have to understand them, and then we go to complexer words.
Right. Yep.
So at the end, this was successful. Okay, we didn't put the bar too high, which is also good. So for my point of view, from the operator's point of view, as I said, we increase complexity. This is something we shouldn't underestimate, because today most of the things are existing, but they're covered by the vendor. So if we buy from any of the existing vendors, Ericsson, Nokia, ZTE, Samsung, whomever, they do all the stuff for us. They also do the IoT testing for us. So we buy a product with a software which is working. Now with the different products, we get really in a situation that we need a system integrator, or we need a very good own lab, which is both a topic. Then the automation of the virtual layer is definitely needed. No one can sit there and look every day on OpenStack and check these things. They're not meant to be like this. I think they're already built, being automated, so it's nothing manual, so you have to machine for this. And again, the common language. So when the first time I read auto healing, I was really excited, because in my world, this means one of my radio sites has an outage, and the other ones are putting up the antennas and increasing power, so that this loss of service in this position is covered. This is auto healing for me. Auto healing for someone else is, okay, a server is not running properly, maybe we restart it. So please keep this in mind when you're talking, when you're an operator talking to an IT company or vice versa. Please talk about what you're saying. Okay, we don't have common rules for this, unfortunately, but this is really important for me. And maybe the next steps from.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Comment, and I think part of the reason, of course, it was the first phase, and we were both learning, and yeah, that was picked as the most obvious way, like to fix a problem in the lab. But it's a great point, Gerald, and I think it's also a little bit of misunderstanding is happening, because two different worlds are coming together: the software world and radio world, which actually never talked to each other before. And I think what CSPs and vendors should do is to probably evolve their existing relationship, which is more like a traditional thing. Like, you guys tell us what you need, we'll build it for you, into something that would be more synergetic, if you will. Something that would be mutually contributive. So we will contribute together and foster new ideas. And something that TIP, ORAN Consortium, and ETSI are doing together, getting started as well, but there's some synergy there. So only CSPs and vendors should follow the same path, and only in practical space. I guess the great enabler would be non-real-time RIC, which is a part of SMO. Creating an RAP together with a CSP would be a good illustration of fostering such an innovation. And the RIC is, by the way, what we bring in to the next phase of the POC.
Yeah, and so the next step for us is then also containerization as soon as it's available. We're still in the lab with this, because moving with such a tool into the live network is a big hassle. Many security stuff has to be done. So the idea was to be in the lab first, to be able to play around, to be able to make failures, to do things wrong, which didn't happen, luckily. But at least we had the opportunity to do this. So
Yeah, I guess there's a
there was a Q&A session, but we skipped it. And we are happy to answer your question afterwards when we're off the stage.
Thanks, everyone.
We saved some time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And may I ask Cristina to come and present to us automation and orchestration standards.
Thank you. Yeah, backward and forth. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Cristina Badulescu. I work for Ericsson. I am an active contributor in ORAN, various working groups, specifically the architecture working group. I'm also the vice chair of the ETSI HGNFV. So automation orchestration, the topic of the day. In ORAN, we have quite a lot of work that's been done in the space. Some of the things that we can mention are, of course, the run configuration, data collection, and we are discussing actually going one step further now into data processing. So features like a run analytics or run management analytics are being also under discussions. The orchestration of the network functions, and here we're looking at the physical run, so PNFs, and we're also looking at the cloudified run functions. These are run network functions that would be deployed on the OCloud. And the OCloud is assumed to have different virtualization technologies, which could be based on VMs or could be based on containers. Accounting and asset management of cloud resources, that covers the work that we're doing currently in the topology and inventory services definition, which starts with use cases, but the plan is to move on into the modeling, have a topology model, inventory model, and also APIs to access these. And then, of course, all the automation work in the ORAN architecture is considering the traditional actions, but also adding intelligence. So we would see through the presentation, for example, the introduction of AI/ML workflows in the RICs and so forth. So the ORAN high-level architecture, I guess you're very familiar with this picture. But I will start, nevertheless, top-down. So the big purple box, the service management and orchestration framework, which is currently assigned the responsibility of doing the run domain management and orchestration. We are at this point working in the architecture group in ORAN on the architecture decomposition of the SMO. So we took a service-based approach where we are identifying first the services that would be part of the SMO, and then we would be moving on into seeing how those would be best fit into various functions. And after the study is completed, we are expecting that the architecture of the ORAN of the SMO specifically would be revised via normative work. So further than that, going southbound from the SMO, we have the interfaces that allow the SMO to do management of the OCloud resources. So on the left side, you see O2. O2 has two major categories of services, the O2 DMS, O2 IMS. O2 DMS refers to the deployment interface, the interface that supports deployment and lifecycle management of the network functions from ORAN. And then the O2 IMS supports the management of the infrastructure software that has to run on the infrastructure and in general of the OCloud infrastructure. A1, of course, is the interface between the two RICs, where the non-real-time RIC is guiding the applications in the near real-time RIC via policy-based actions. There's the O1 interface that allows the FCAPs, or the configuration of the run network functions, and of course, the open front haul endplane, which is matching to the management interface towards the run, the radio management, and that matches the legacy run, for example. We can see also on the right-hand side, and you can see also in the legend down below, there's two black interfaces, one from the SMO going to the external systems, and the other one going down towards the core. Both of them are out of scope of ORAN at this point. So into more details, we now have also the intelligent control in the SMO and also at the network functions level. The SMO non-real-time RIC enables, of course, the near real-time RIC control optimization of ORAN and talks via via A1 policies towards the near real-time RIC. There's the further down going into the ORAN disaggregated network function. So now we have the OCUCP, which is the control plane for the radio resource management function. Then there's the OCUUP, which has the user plane of the RRM. And then further down, the DU, which has the higher physical layer functions, including the radio link control and media access control. And then last but not least, the ORU, which has the lower physical layer of the radio function processing. And as I said, the OCloud, which is a computing platform that comprises not just the physical infrastructure, but also the virtualization layers that come on top of it. So whether they're the virtualization technologies are VMs or containers, it would still be, they would still be, for example, installed, managed via the SMO into the OCloud. So the state of the ORAN automation. So far, we have a few things that were defined. There's much more work to do. The multi-layer control loops, for example, that are defined in the architecture. So as you can see, the little circles marked there. So there's the non-real-time control loops, there's near real-time control loops, and real-time control loops defined in the architecture document. And just to give you a brief idea, in the black comment at the bottom, you also have some versions which are the latest versions today. So for example, architecture document has the latest version 7, use cases 8, and so forth. So up to and including the architecture version 7 and use cases version 8, we do have these 3 types of control loops defined as part of the architecture. What distinguishes them, of course, is the timing that is dependent of use cases, of course, but distinguishes as to what is really real-time, meaning at the network function levels, and that has to be below 10 milliseconds. What is at the near real-time RIC level, which has to be in the range of 10 milliseconds and maybe a bit above, and what's at the non-real-time RIC, which is in the seconds range. Further down, we have the management of the FCAPs for the network functions and how to trigger these configuration actions. There's a lot of ideas and things in discussion, as well as mechanisms already in place to allow, for example, triggering coming from ROPS down through the SMO towards the network functions. Management and orchestration of cloud resources. As I mentioned, the O2 DMS interface. So again, now the latest are V3 for DMS, V4 for IMS. And those, as you see in the picture in the middle, do allow the 2 different interfaces, which are both O2 labeled, but they do different things. So the assumption is, for example, that in one OCloud instance, you can have multiple DMSs. So what do we mean by that? So for example, you can have an OCloud instance that has different virtualization technologies, containers, Kubernetes based, for example, or VMs, OpenStack based as another example. Or there could be some other types of DMSs on top. As we all know, hyperscalers is one example. And then, last but not least, one of the recent features that was approved in ORAN is the SMO intent management. So in the last figure on the right, you see basically the northbound interface in the SMO coming in, supporting intents management. The reason why you see it, and this is just a picture from the WID, there's a lot of architecture work that needs to be done still. The idea is that since the non-real-time rig currently has services with external terminations, such as service management exposure, data management exposure, those also could be helpful in exposing further to external consumers of DSMO, such as an end-to-end service management, BSS, etc., to provide their requests via intents instead of the traditional interfaces. So the phase 1 that's ongoing now for intents, it's scoped to do the use cases, requirements, and architecture work, and that should be finished by next year, mid-year. Then the second phase is the work that comes up in the modeling and APIs, as to what would be the common models, specific extensions to serve the use cases, and an API to serve, to allow intents to come in. So in terms of other standardization work that relates to ORAN, but is highly relevant for ORAN. So first of all, we're trying not to reinvent the wheel, but reuse good specifications that are already in the industry. The one example is, for example, the 3GPP specifications that we are using for the OAM part. So workgroup 10, O1 interface specification, as well as the OAM architecture. So as you can see, plenty of them. In the management orchestration space, the generic network resource model, of course, and there's features-specific specification like file transfer, PM tracing, the measurements, the radio minimization of drive tests, and inventory management. In addition to that, there's other automation-related work that's going on that is highly relevant and would present some collaboration opportunities. So for example, 3GPP work on COSLA, the closed-loop automation work that has been done, intents management. They have studies going on intents, and now they're specifically looking at intents for slicing. AIML, so study as well as now into normative phase on specifically on the machine learning. And autonomous network level definition. There's also management data analytics work that is being done as well at the normative level. And of course, besides the SA5 view, there's the NWDAF done in SA2, of course, Stage 3 in CT and the security aspects in SA3, as well as the AI study, AIML study done on the next generation run in run 3. Now moving on to ETSI. This is another SDO of high relevance to ORAN. ETSI IGNAV is one of the standards body groups that has specifications that are referenced in the workgroup 602 specifications, O2 DMS specifically. So O2 DMS has two profiles. One is ETSI NAV based, the other one is Kubernetes based. In case of the ETSI IGNAV, we do have mature specifications. So there's stage 2, stage 3. There's been also a series of ETSI plug tests for interoperability, also conformance testing with the APIs and models. And we do reuse LCM interface specifications, descriptors, packaging, and of course, some of the security parts. There are, of course, further opportunities for collaboration with them in that space. There's work that's been done. So autonomous networks, probably you've learned a lot about it. It's an umbrella feature term that in standards, and not just ETSI or 3GPP, TM4 as well, as we will see, is used to kind of cover several automation aspects, like intents, like analytics, like AIML, lifecycle management, and so forth. So in ETSI, there was an initial study, and now we have normative work on the management data analytics interface and intent models and interfaces. There's also a report on how to use, to make use of operations data and apply it through a cognitive process to do root cause analysis and all kind of other uses for reliability purposes. ZSM, which is Zero Touch Network and Service Management. They do look from an end-to-end perspective of service management automation. So they do have an architecture, various specifications. What relates specifically to the more advanced automation space is the work they're doing on the AI enablers. The network digital twin study that's ongoing now. They do have 3 sets of specifications on closed-loop automation. And here we're talking about the enablers, solutions, and more advanced topics for the closed-loop automation. So they dived in quite a bit into the topic. And they also have a study on intent management, looking at what's already there in the industry, what they can apply from an end-to-end perspective, and how they would also be able to interact using intents with the management domains that would participate in the end-to-end service management. So TM Forum view, there's quite a bit. I'm not going to go through everything. But I think the more prominent things to mention up here is the Autonomous Networks project. And in there, they've done quite extensive work on intent management. They go down to stages 2 and 3, so they do have open APIs that would would be the realization of their intent management APIs. They do have models. They actually defined a common model that can be used for intents by anyone, and also a way to extend them and apply specific management domain extensions to that model so that each SDO, for example, can do their own extensions if they want to, on top of that. There are AI-related work streams, quite a few. Closed-loop automation and data-driven, they have data management. They're started to build a data-driven pipeline, but they're not there yet, so they just position themselves into the space. So I think the takeaway from this is that, at least from the ORAN perspective, we do see that automation orchestration are key areas. We are still working and exploring that. We don't think we've done enough, obviously, as you can see. There's more being brought in. But bottom line is that we are progressing well. We're looking at the main key areas for automation. We do realize this is important operationally, and also in order to reduce costs and go towards the targets that the operators have stated, I guess, throughout this week as well. There are other forums, like standards development organizations, like 3GPP, ETSI, TF Forum, I just mentioned a few, which can help a lot ORAN to speed up progress, and just by reusing some of the specifications, continue to reuse. We're already reusing some. That could help also speed up the development process of the specifications. So everyone is welcome to contribute. We do need more contributions and more ideas. It was a very interesting week last week where we heard quite a few new use cases that we discussed, and they all go towards this goal of automating the management orchestration of the run. So that is it. I don't know, we have 2 minutes, I guess, for questions, or how does it work?
Well, if there's
yeah?
anyone wants to ask any questions. Thank you, Cristina. So can I ask Atul Kana, Taqiyuddin, Shinli, Frances, Masood, and David?
Great to be back. very much looking at the other, I guess, the other end of the lens with the vendors and the Roma organization, Wizindi. I sort of just briefly want to you each to introduce yourself and your role and where you're coming from, and I'll start with Jinli at the end.
Thank you very much. So this is Shindy from Meta, but I'm actually representing TIP Open RAN project group. I'm a technical lead in TIP Open RAN project group with a focus on RAN orchestration and the management automation. That's where you hear very often ROMA stands for RAN orchestration and management automation. That's what we focus on. Working on SMO, but not the non-real-time rig. But what is in Roma, what is more than SMO is the CDCT, continuous deployment, continuous testing. So that's why we invent this new term, Roma, not use the SMO. It's less and it's more than SMO. Thank you.
And Atul, if I could come to you.
Thanks, glad to be here. My name is Atul Kahana. I'm working with Amdocs. My role is pretty much working on emerging technologies. And me and my team is working with the Roma group on the SMO architecture, CDCT, how we are standardizing that process. We'll go into the detail in the panel.
And Takai next.
Yeah. So yeah, I am Taqiyuddin Kinnoush, so I operate within the CTO office of VIV Solution. Questions of automation orchestration interest me a lot, and I'm operating also within the Roma subgroup, working on defining test plans, and test executions for everything orchestration automation within TIP. Yeah.
And David?
Hello, morning everyone. Thanks for having us here. My name is David Espadas. I'm responsible for product marketing for all the OSS portfolio in Ericsson that includes our SMO product.
Masood last.
Hi, good morning everybody. Masood Amin. I'm from Capgemini, and we are involved in SMO development, non-real-time RIC and RIC platforms. We are also part of TIP Roma, defining the service catalogs and workflows. We are also part of URAN Alliance. Happy to be here.
Okay, great. We heard a little bit earlier in this session about some of the challenges, particularly in terms of, I think, taking the early deployments and scaling them up. Could we start by sort of kind of exploring how you're seeing from your organization's point of view on achieving that the scalability, not just in terms of scaling the number of base stations, but also in terms of scaling the kind of change and new innovation, because innovation has been a very key part of the conference today. How are you seeing that one? Takai, if I could come to you first from the sort of how you introduce new features into the network.
I think this is a really good question. So, I mean, for an orchestration automation to be meaningful in Open RAN, it has to scale, obviously. And I think one of the challenges when you develop an SMO single-handedly, I mean, and you test it locally, I mean, you will never be able to subject it to the necessary pressure that would allow you to discover any pitfalls or any problems at scale. So this is why TIP and Roma kind of bring a very nice environment where TIP labs, for example, can create the context for SMOs to really be tested at scale by the number of CUs, the number of DUs, trigger points for all of the automation capabilities, scalability, and auto-healing. So this is really key to kind of come with an SMO solution that truly can be certified as scalable and durable. Yeah.
And Atul, similar area, where are you seeing the key direction in terms of enabling this scaling of orchestration and automation for a new RAN?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we all know that Open RAN brings a cloud-native function, bring a lot of automation. And the challenge part of it is there are n number of now domain orchestrators out there. So you need a master orchestrator, which is categorized as SMO over here, right? But the MSPs, which are looking for, they also looking for a vendor agnostic SMO, vendor agnostic RAN components, CUDU. How do you automate it? How do you enable it? How do you do it at a mass scale, right? That's what we are working with the TIP Roma group, is to standardize some of these interfaces so that everything really becomes a plug and play. We all know that it's easier said than done, but unless we define those and standardize those interfaces and standardize those interaction, it's still a lot of customization and a lot of individual automation which needs to be done. I think standardization is the key of all these interactions while we are doing all this automation at different layers, whether we call it SMO or whether we call it a CU, whether I think in the previous discussion, the way the CU and DU has been activated and life cycle management has been done. But how do you standardize those interfaces? I think that will define how you scale it up.
Mm-hmm. And Masood, how, from a bringing it all together point of view, how are you seeing this enabling this scale?
So I would say that this is you can have 4 steps. One is that operators are expecting definitely a cloud-native architecture, that you have to have containers and microservices. The second, and there is a scale component, is that how you can do that. There are, assumptions about scaling up, scaling down. Healings are associated with that one. Then second part is that how you actually package these systems so that you should able to deploy them much more easily. And the fourth one is that once you have deployed that, how you're going to run these functions. So in that case, this whole orchestration part is how you can actually bring the whole automation and AI/ML. That part is the key for us to really bring those workflows and configurations.
And David, coming to you last, I guess, on the same question, how are you seeing the automation and orchestration enabling this scale in terms of deployment of the Open RAN networks?
Yeah, I would probably take the angle of the ecosystem. I mean, we need to actually enable the ecosystem, and because Open RAN is all about the ecosystem and bringing more people, more partners into the mix. First of all, I think we need to maximize the addressable market for the ecosystem. I mean, it's been said before, but we are actually on early stages of the Open RAN transformation. So we'll be seeing brownfield deployments for long years now. So that's why things like multi-vendor support, multi-technology support in the SMO platform are going to be key. I think that's our responsibility on the supplier side, probably. Second one, we need to accelerate probably the interface specification, all the industry alignment going on, and this is where the Open Alliance it's a key element of that. I mean, we need to make easy for the ecosystem to integrate, and the only way to do that is via standard interfaces. And the third one is for the SMO platforms, especially, and it's been said before, but we'll probably see a lot of baseline SMO implementations. I think we need to go as suppliers beyond that. We need to be able to provide powerful SMO platforms that actually make easier the life of the ecosystem. Because the more powerful the SMO platform is, the more capabilities they provide. Things like integrated inventory, integrated policy management, like a central point of actually RAN management and orchestration beyond the baseline, as it's been said. The more we provide this set of capabilities, the more the ecosystem will actually be able to focus on the use cases and the value, and not on the what the platform doesn't do.
Okay. And Taka, if I can come back to you, what do you see as the role of both TIP and ORAN Alliance in terms of enabling or promoting the orchestration management area?
Okay, so I think it has been said enough times now, but it's good to stress it out. And disaggregation brings a lot of complexity. So I think in an organization such as TIP and ORAN, and especially TIP, I mean, different players can play a normative role in making sense of all of this, like let's say immense combinatorial basically space of configurations and technological choices and tooling and all of that. So operators especially can play an important role in like kind of a normalizing a little bit of discourse, bounding a little bit the choice, so to improve like more actionable innovation. So I think this is a very, very important role that can be played by TIP and ORAN. And this is through requirement setting. This is through requirement setting, and it was said before as well in the previous panel discussion, is that it is really good that operators can harmonize their discourse, can harmonize a little bit their ambitions to a reasonable extent so that the vendors can receive meaningful feedback from them, they can act on and actually reach an economy of scale in their development and invest in the right at the right pace and the right things. So I think these are really, really important aspects that TIP can excel at doing, yeah, and through testing and testing and testing, which is the key actually idea here. Continuous testing, faster iterations, innovating, bring the product to the lab, test it, see what you learn, and then feedback to the specification. So I mean, which is really important. The fact that TIP and ORAN are really harmonious together is that this very fast iterative cycle of innovation, productization, and then prototyping and creating MVP can feed back to specification where specification is lacking or stalling or moving a little bit slow. Yeah.
And Masood, your view on the role of TIP and ORAN Alliance in terms of achieving a better orchestration and automation framework?
So, as you know, 5G as a technology is being deployed. The challenge is with Open RAN, you have got a disaggregation, you have multiple systems are coming up, and then orchestration and automation is the layer that basically abstracts those changes. Now, we need a place, and that is where the TIP Roma provides us a platform where we can actually start integrating it, testing it, bring the CI/CD part, and then ORAN is also a very critical part of all that evolution because they are the ones who are defining O1 interfaces, O2 interfaces, how these data models, and through these forums we can actually define the MVPs, and those MVPs we can deploy it, so that this whole disaggregated, bit of a disjointed systems can come together and we can deliver a service over there.
Yep.
And David, collaboration is going to be key in enabling a lot of success of Open RAN generally, and specifically in terms of a lot of the automation that we would want in the network. What are you seeing as the challenges in terms of different vendors collaborating, and what do you see as the role of either TIP or ORAN Alliance in terms of getting better collaboration between vendors in this area?
Well, it's certainly, I mean, certainly the forum to actually get together and bring all the experience from the vendor side, from the operator side. I mean, in that sense, they're critical. I mean, they need to be there. They are there. And probably, just coming back to something that was in the previous panel, more people need to join the alignment fora because, if we take a look at, who's writing specifications, it's not 100 people. I mean, we need to bring more people into the mix. Okay. We need to have more input, to have more companies, more partners. I think that's and the ORAN Alliance and TIP are probably the proper places to do that.
Okay. Abdel, if I can come to you next, where do you, in terms of the organizations involved here, where do you see the key focuses we need to be looking at? We can do everything, obviously, but to make this really work, where do we need to focus in terms of achieving automation and orchestration for RAN?
Yeah, no, I think we all know that disaggregation is leading to the challenges as well, right? And what is the exact use cases? And the aggregation of the CSPs, I think, where TIP and Roma is playing a key role, like what use cases they want to achieve. Yeah, because I think that there is an inherent challenges of disaggregation which needs to be aggregated together, where ORAN is playing a key role of interfaces and standardizing those. Now the definition of the use cases, what BT needs, what Orange needs, what Telefónica needs, and what an AT&T and Verizon needs, I think that's where the work is in progress as well, like the definition of use cases and definition of success criteria. Instead of creating a success criteria for each and individual MNOs, which has been successful in the past, with disaggregation, it cannot be done as well, right? With all the niche players and all the automation that is expected, I think aggregation of those use cases and the path for that what needs to be done in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 approach, I think, which in the previous panel was shared as well. I think the clarity and the definition is key to the success. I think that definition and prioritization, which is being done as we speak, I think I would say more effort needs to be done on that end.
Masood, Takai and David, do you have anything to add to that? Where should we be focusing?
Yeah. So let me take a stab. So essentially, there is no limit for orchestration and automation. You can say that's a zero-touch provisioning, and just things get installed. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. We need to define, because right now, if you look at it, what are the services that you can deliver? Very basic services. How you can provision the systems. Can this system be a cloud native? Can you bring multiple platforms and do that? So those are the focus areas, so that we should be able to deliver a basic ORAN functions to the community. And then we can build it up on top of it, depending upon use cases, deployment models.
Yeah. If I may add to that, I would say that, I mean, there are a couple of challenges, basically. One of which is being part of Roma as basically test provider. I mean, we have a reasonable neutral position, so we can see from different angles. So one particular challenge I see is striking a balance between clarity and ambiguity in the requirement setting. I understand that operators, on purpose, they put ambiguity a little bit in the requirement setting to drive innovation and let the system integrators and the vendors come up with their own interpretations. But at some point, this needs to move to a little bit more clarity, because from a testing perspective, it's challenging to design a vendor-agnostic testing methodology and approach where the requirements are kind of vague and can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. So this is one. A second thing is also what are the focus areas at every stage that you need to kind of normalize on. I mean, tooling probably not at the beginning. I mean, talking about orchestrating and managing cloud native solutions. I mean, the tooling choice is huge. There are a lot of ways you could do that. You could do it through Helm, through other technologies. So it's good to give some flexibility to the system integrator to make the right choice, because they know better, basically. So this is another key, the key point. A third point is the fact that traditional end-to-end system providers, they have this advantage of accumulating a critical mass of expertise in the end-to-end system. Now, once you disaggregate, the question can be asked: where will this critical mass appear? I mean, it cannot appear at single components of the full end-to-end system. So places like TIP is probably where this critical mass needs to be had, where the talent needs to be positioned and centralized, I mean, to answer questions of security, of configuration, alignment of different components. So this is a really, really crucial point in my opinion as well, yeah.
David, anything to say?
I mean, I'm totally agreeing to that. I think the scarcity of talent in the market, I think it's a common problem we are finding nowadays. Now with the idea that the operators want to kind of take over part of the integration responsibility, part of the, together with integrators, but still, being more part of this system integration process. I mean, that's a question for me more than an answer. I mean, how will we do with there is not enough talent in many critical areas. Automation, AI, cloud native management, cloud native design, how this will actually play in the midterm, with more operators wanting to do more system integration, more basically distributed testing of the systems.
Okay. And Jinli, you head up the TIP Roma subgroup looking at orchestration and automation. How do you react to some of the comments that have been made by the vendor ecosystem players here?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And when we look at the TIP basically is an organization that works with ecosystem partners to productify open networking technology. So the starting point for us is really to take the standards from SDOs such as ORAN Alliance, 3GPP, ETSI, as our upstream input. You have the standards there. But you hear the operators are saying that when we working on Open RAN, when we disaggregate network functions, open up the interfaces, you introduce complexity. You introduce complexity not only in the RAN infrastructure, but even if it comes to management of the infrastructure, comes to automation, how to manage that complexity. The approach that we have taken in TIP Open RAN project group in general, and in Open RAN orchestration and the management automation subgroup, is that we take a phased approach. Yeah. We work with the operators and work together to identify what is the most important now and what can be done at a later stage. So as a part of this, we developed the product roadmap based on the input requirements from MOU group operators in Europe, these 5 operators. We also have input from GCC operators from Middle East and from operators in APAC like Airtel and from North America. So we collect all the input of the requirements. You get even more complexity, but then we work with the operators to prioritize those and make a roadmap. Earlier this year, TIP Open RAN project group has published the Open RAN roadmap release 2.0. We're working on revising that roadmap, and we would expect to publish a roadmap release 2.1 right after this event. So that's one way to manage the complexity of the Open RAN ecosystem. The other thing that we're doing is really that when we disaggregate the Open RAN network functions, and one of the very clear signal we hear from the operators is that they want to support multi-vendor mix and match and all that. How do we support that? We support that by setting up a lab testing environment to enabling supporting vendors to really integrate their products, to test and validate, demonstrate that they are capable of doing the job that they are supposed to do, not only functioning there as isolated own, but also actually in the real testing environment. With that, we got support from Capgemini, for example. We have set up a end-to-end testing environment in TIP Community Lab that includes a real RU from one vendor, the CUDU software from Capgemini running on COS hardware, including also the core network. So it's totally end-to-end. By setting up such a network infrastructure, the intention is to test the SMO, the CDCT products from multiple vendors. We started with the first vendor, not surprised. The SMO was from Capgemini as the first one. So that, but we are expecting to work with more partners to utilize this testing environment to test and validate, to demonstrate the features and functions and show the capability of multi-vendor networking. That's the second thing that we do in TIP Open RAN Roma subgroup. Last but not least, Roma is a community by the partners and for the partners. So it's not that a few people sit there and make everything happen. It's really based on the contribution from all the partners. The operators are leading, driving the requirements, give guidance on priorities, but the technology supplier partners like MDOCs, like Viavi, they are also contributing. For example, Viavi is the one that are leading a work group that are driving the development of the test plan. So as a vendor that you probably know, that every time you go to an operator and you want to show your product, you have to develop a test plan and show the capability and so on. What we intend to do is that we want to develop one test plan that would be suited for multiple occasions. We know the need from operators for specific requirements that you have to do, but hopefully 80% of the work is the same. So if we have developed a test plan in TIP, in Open RAN, that you can use at least that 80% of the job is done together by the opportunity once for all. And you still probably, when you go to your customer and when the operator wants to qualify vendors, you still probably have to develop the other 20% based on specific operators' requirements for specific situations. That's the one work that we're doing. The other work that we're doing is that when you look at all the nice work as presented by Cristina in ORAN Alliance, in 3GPP, ETSI, and TM Forum, it's all great work. But we notice in one area that is probably, that to our knowledge, we don't see any working standardization. That is when you have the orchestration and so on, and you have the CDCT workflow engine, how these two would be integrated together to our knowledge, we don't know any standard work on defining the interfaces and so on and so forth. For that part of the work, MDocs is leading the work group to look at what would be the requirements for multi-vendor integration between SMO and the CDCT. So these are the two ongoing activities. We certainly welcome all the partners, operators, and the vendors to come together, and we work together to drive the whole ecosystem. That's how TIP-Open support the ecosystem to productify the orchestration and automation product and solutions. Hopefully, we'll get them to the commercial stage.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Jinli. And I'd like to thank the other panelists, Atul, Takai, David, and Masood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.